Well, good morning. So fantastic to be with you here today. Let me just adjust my view ever so slightly. A little bit better there. There's what we're after. Well, thank you guys for joining in today. Let's switch away from this screen onto something that maybe is a little more relevant. If we can get this moving. There we go. Welcome. Check out my website, selfrecruiter.com, if you haven't. A lot of resources over there that will help you. Remember, this is the third session this week. If you missed the other sessions, you can go back just like magic. You can go back and see them anytime. Check out my Facebook, my Self-Recruiter YouTube channel, my LinkedIn feed. And we started out the week on Monday with resume renovation, all the ways to really lift your career branding on a single sheet of paper whose job is to get you the interview. Of course, today's session is all about the interview. The interview is where you have to persuade them that you are the one or teach them how to select you. But Tuesday, we talked about how to take that single sheet telling of your career story, that dazzling, just ruby, diamond, emerald, nugget of gold, drop of perfume, telling of the story. How do we take that to LinkedIn and transform it into a full three-dimensional sales brochure all about you? That was Tuesday. Go back and watch that one. It'll help you a lot. And today is interview intervention, all the reasons that will really help you win that spot that you're after. Now, when I named this, I named it because I thought most people need an intervention. We know what an intervention really is, but we need an intervention before our next interview because we're going in there to answer questions. Why? Yes, I know we're using the device of a Q&A, but really it's a sales presentation. It's a sales presentation all about you that hopefully never loses sight that it's also actually a date. Let's get a little bit of that. It's a dating process as well as an interview process in terms of you having to really fall in love with the mission of this organization, whatever it is, commercial, nonprofit, doesn't really matter. It's your job to make sure that you're not just qualified for this spot, but oh my gosh, I'm the one for you. As we think about it, it's really all about influence. The idea of an interview is to influence them about your value. It's the nuance in communications that's possible in that. And also the things that help support that are all the personal branding items. So if you didn't fix your career story with the resume or fix it across your LinkedIn profile, go back and watch those videos, and please do on all of them, like, comment, share, message, share with your friends, all the kind of fun stuff that really does help and is greatly appreciated. But we have to start with this idea. If we're going to influence them, especially in the interview, we're this product. What kind of product do you want to be? What caliber, what level of product? Do you want to be that national brand? Do you want to be that store brand? National brand or the store brand? Well, I can tell you which one gets compensated in a different way, not the store brand. Think about all the things that go into branding and a lot more in the earlier lectures this week that you can go back and watch. All of that is about separating you from somebody else, as is the interview itself. Make sure to take your career branding across every bit of communications that you might have, and that will help set the right stage so your interview can be more successful. Now, in terms of interview, your success is determined by how much preparation, because interviews are a sales meeting. Sales. Well, if you're in sales, you probably already really get this, but it's a sales meeting. So we need to begin to think about that as a sales meeting, make our case. My job isn't to go in there and be interrogated. My job is to go in there and make my case as to why I'm really the very best individual. It may feel like an interrogation sometimes, and that usually comes from someone that doesn't necessarily understand interviewing and they're just following some formula. But it's not really an interrogation. It's your opportunity to teach them how to select you as that very best individual. That's your job for the interview. If we fail that job and just leave it up to their, oh, did they like me? Did they like my wares? They took a look at the wares and did they like me? That's a lot of rolling of the dice. It's the same as any sales meeting where your job is to go in there and persuade them. Mistake I've talked about in each lecture this week is most job seekers then try to just be cookie cutter perfect. I'll be so perfect, they'll just pick me. I'll be cookie cutter perfect, cookie cutter perfect. That's fine. I'll take number two. Number two, I'm going to pay you less. I'm going to pay you less. No, you don't want less. Number one, number five, doesn't really matter. You're all cookie cutter perfect, interchangeable. You're getting lower compensation. Yes, you somehow have to be cookie cutter perfect in that presentation. That's a little bit of the magic, but you have to be separate, different, exceptional, somehow stepping out of line to show your value on a different level from your competitors, your engagement ability on a different level than competitors, your interest in the organization on a different level than your competitors. If you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn profile guru also. So if you're suffering, as most individuals are, with really poor storytelling, storytelling, that word gets a bad rap because we think of things that may not be true. That's not what I mean. I mean, this is not a confessional moment. There's no sin of omission. I can leave out any part of the story, all the dull administrative stuff I never want to do again. I can leave that out. But whatever's in has to be absolutely letter true, and it has to be a rich, engaging story. I could tell you a story that's a snooze fest very quickly, or I could tell you something so interesting. You and I picked up the phone and the CEO was on the other end to offer me the job. Ooh, ooh, tingles right into the moment. Try to put people in your shoes, looking out of your eyes right in the moment. I'll share a little bit more about my background and why I think you should listen to my advice as we go along. A lot of great ideas in my book. You can check out Amazon for that. It really acts as a wonderful roadmap for all the ways to handle your job search. Even when you get that wrong offer and you need to renegotiate, how do I do it? It's all right in there, and it will help you. A couple other tools that will help you. A special version of my LinkedIn lecture is right on my Self-Recruiter homepage. About halfway down the page, you can see a version there where you can have me large, you can have the slides large, whatever works for you best. You can use it as a start and stop tutorial. Of course, over on my LinkedIn profile, you can get to a number of articles that will really help you move whatever obstacle is out of the way. The whole series, including these 3 this week, is really about becoming a self-recruiter. How is it I'm going to become one great recruiter that really looks after just one great candidate, which is also me? And you have to be a number of other things. You have to be the strategist, the person that picks yourself up by the bootstraps and dusts yourself off when necessary, the cheerleader, the person that really devises everything, and also the person that speaks at the same time that you're thinking of all of those things. It's about taking control in a very different way, not only in the way you outreach, which I teach in the LinkedIn lectures. Be sure to take a look at that to change the way you outreach for these jobs, but also in the way I engage people and go about my job search and go about the discussion. Of course, if we're not keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable, those 4, 5, 6 people that would simply take your opportunity, oh my gosh, we're really missing something. Those perfect people, I'm not sure if I've actually met one. We'd all like to be perfect, but the human condition is defective. We're human beings. There's something not quite right. We're all different, defective by nature. We're not perfect. So those perfect people suffer from something called ego and arrogance, and they don't prepare. They get up, they shave, they do whatever, they put their clothes on. That's getting dressed. We all have to do that. That's not preparation. A little bit of forethought, a little bit of planning, a little bit of strategy. You can outmaneuver those perfect people almost every time because they don't actually prepare. But if you stick your head in the sand, almost every time they'll beat you because somehow they're dazzling. Maybe the brands they've worked for, the title they had, or they're a smooth talker, but there's not much substance. Let's think about how we're going to outmaneuver those folks and really showcase ourselves as the one to be selected. We'd all like to go after the job, really get the job, maybe even get the interview. That's fantastic if it really only worked that way, if it was that simple. Most people are sitting home doing what you're doing. They're hitting that darn button. Almost never says apply, almost always says submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive it's like a Friday night waiting for permission. Leaves us in a very unhappy place. Now, with our interviews, it's really about not preparing as a sales meeting. It's a sales meeting. If you were in business and had to go sell your company's wares or service or whatever it is to some other organization, you'd walk in that room and you'd make your case because you had a plan. It's usually because we don't have a plan and we're just going there to be questioned and interrogated, leaves us in this not so good place. Have to think more unusually, unconventionally, unexpectedly, and move the whole process because it's small little changes that change everything. Simply change those rules by ignoring the ones that don't apply to you or shouldn't apply to you. Oh, that rule's for somebody else. But of course, walking into the interview, we have to think of ourselves as this product. How do we want to be? Well, let's talk about how we don't want to be mediocre. This, unfortunately, pains me to say, is about half of the workforce. I do love to read this one, of only moderate quality, not very good, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, uninspired, undistinguished, indifferent, unexceptional, unexciting, unremarkable, run-of-the-mill, pedestrian, lackluster, forgettable, amateur, okay, so, come see, come saw, plain vanilla, fair to middling, no great shakes, not up to much, and bush league. Don't be mediocre. By the way, if you understand that half the workforce is mediocre, which is kind of depressing and portends some awful things for our future, what do you have to be? Just a little bit better than mediocre. And if you put a little bit of heart and soul into whatever your function is, you'll naturally be that top 1, 2, 3%. Very, very different outcome. Life is not transactional. Go all in. So what is your story? Because in an interview, you are here to tell it through the device of the question and answer. Keep it really conversational. I hope you don't fall in the trap of a poor interviewer where they go question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Okay, interview 101. But as I begin to answer, I'm going to begin to answer more conversationally each time to draw them out of that format and into a format that really works for positioning and selling myself. Be ready to share. Be ready to persuade. That's your job. It's not about letting them choose. What do they know? My job is to teach them how to choose me. Now, your interview can also take place in person, on the telephone, could be a video conference of some sort. Each of these have different both benefits and traps that we simply have to think about. In all cases, don't forget what I said. You're not really there to answer questions, even though that sounds counterintuitive, but it's this device itself. And sometimes you have to answer like a good politician. That's a bad time to bring up politics. How they're good politicians, I'm not sure after watching the last few years on all sides of everything. But a good politician historically is one that understands when not to answer the question. Great example might be Tim Cook, who's running Apple right now. A few years back in the spring, he was talking to some college audience. It was not a commencement. He was just talking to the class, and video of it up on YouTube somewhere. I'm sure you can find it. And one of the students asked a very inappropriate question. When is it okay not to listen to our professors? Well, thank you for that wonderful question. As I'm standing next to the professor, if I'm Tim Cook. Tim's a smart guy, and of course also understands how to act like a politician. And immediately he rephrased the question. What I think you're really asking me is, when is it okay not to follow the rules? And I think you should rarely follow the rules if you'd like to get to what you're thinking about. Otherwise, I think you should be writing the rules, or you're not really going to get to what you're imagining. Very, very different thought and approach. Rephrase that question if necessary. Put it over on the right angle, not necessarily the angle they gave you. You also have to know yourself. You're there to sell yourself. Why is it you're more valuable than the next 5, 6, 7 people that want that job? You have to drink enough of the Kool-Aid to be a true believer, and yet not so much that you misrepresent or are fooling yourself. That's not going to help you either. Now, the secret you may not like to the hiring process is, if you're capable and qualified, please don't mishear that. I will never hire someone that I don't believe to be capable or qualified. But the capable and qualified, to me, is not the reason I'm going to hire you. That's irrelevant. Well, it's not irrelevant. It has to be on the table. But that's not the reason I choose you. I wouldn't speak to anybody that I didn't believe to be capable or qualified. What it comes down to is chemistry and confidence. This is usually where I try to remind people that in reality, I'm a little bit shy and introverted, which usually makes my friends spit out their coffee across the room because they've never seen it. Just because I'm very, very good at hiding it does not mean it's not just below the surface. So know your content. There's one good lesson. Understand your value, another good lesson, and believe in your value, probably a third good lesson there. But it really comes down to chemistry and confidence. Chemistry above all other things in life. Confidence in you above all other things than chemistry. And that's before the credentialing, which you've done in the background, everything else, assuming you're right for that role. So this is really about creating engagement, but it's a lot closer to this style engagement, as you've heard me say all week long. This is very similar to a dating process. Are you just looking for a job? I'm not hiring people that are looking for a job. I want someone that wants this job at this company with this mission, whatever it might be. So what's your story? Are you ready for that? Yeah, be capable and qualified, but spend too much time trying to prove that. You should already be capable and qualified. That's a duty, responsibility things, and duty are like duty. So stay away from it. Why are you interesting? What makes you tick? What drives you? That could have something directly to do with your professional life, could have nothing to do with your professional life, could be the extra part of the story, as we talked about over the resume renovation lecture and the LinkedIn building your career brand lecture. Check those out over on my YouTube. All of this requires a paradigm shift in our approach to interviewing, a metamorphosis. This isn't just a little bit of touch-up, a little bit of makeup, a little bit of lighting. No, this is like, let's break it down to the studs and rebuild what we're doing here from the bottom up. As you think about everything you might want to speak about from your background, it all has to filter through a singular lens for the interview. And that is what qualifies to be something that will convey to them why it's going to be the best business decision they're going to make today if they choose to hire you. I'm not going to literally say, well, it'd be the best business decision today if you hired me because of this. No. Let them come to the conclusion, make your case, but don't use that verbiage. Communications mastery is an important skill for the interview. We have to find out about them. We have to show interest in them. I hope you did a little research and understand what their background is and maybe find areas of commonality. Did you go to the same school? Did you both like fencing? Did you both like to vacation in the Caribbean? I don't know what it is. Could be a lot of different things, but those small things that we can use in soft skills, small talk, do a lot to build that chemistry and have them envision you as part of the team. I could see this working with this person 8 hours a day. Soft skills are a number of other things. It's our emotional intelligence quotient, but it's all the things you see listed here that I don't really have to read, but look at the last two here. The friendliness and optimism. I'm a Sagittarius, which means if you follow any of that stuff or believe any of that stuff, I am optimistic like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust. I really hope it isn't, but the sun's coming up either way. That level of optimism. And then you have to carry that and embody that, not just in what you say vocally, but in your body language, everything else. All of it is about influencing them. If I were to take it another direction, to another phrase you've heard earlier in the week, it's also your job to charm and disarm them of their concerns. Charm them so they realize that you're the right chemistry match for the team, and disarm them of any concerns they might have about why you may or may not be the right one. Now, before the interview, I think you need to warm up the audience. So let's make sure, if we haven't done it as part of our approach that I talked in the LinkedIn lecture, my goodness, take the people you're about to meet and open up their profiles on LinkedIn. What that does is it shows you, having looked at them, 6 people looked at you. Who's looked at me? Oh, I'm meeting John on Tuesday. You know what that is? That's another opportunity for them to click on John's name, open his sales brochure, and read about John before the interview, embedding his value, because it's a sales process. At the same time, ask them to connect. But in this case, unlike what I said in the LinkedIn lecture, I'm going in for an interview. If the interview is on Tuesday, I'm simply going to say, dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, on the connect piece, I'd love to add you to my LinkedIn network as a great connection, and very much looking forward to our discussion on Tuesday at 10 a.m. All the best. Oh, I guess I'm meeting with us. What's his background? Click. Sales brochure is open. Mission accomplished. They're reading about your background ahead of the meeting. So yes, the basics are, you're about to meet me. I'm professionally appropriate. A little bit of stroke to the ego mixed into that language. Something as nice as this. Many ways to say it. Make it your own. Now, your LinkedIn profile, hopefully when they land on it, they get a good sales brochure about you, that little extra nudge about why you're so special and why you're different than the competitors who probably have a poor LinkedIn profile with just a few cursory things there. That is dry. That is not very interesting. Ugh. What you need in all of this is a little bit of magic to make it happen. Those gentle figurative nudges that are going to make everything really come to life. So get away from the dry pencil-y piece and let's create a little bit of magic. Small changes change perception. Be persuasive. I'm not there to let them decide upon me. I'm there to persuade them that I am the right one. And somehow let it be their idea at the same time. Now, we're going to drill down and teach you how to do a real preparation for interview. So Each of these areas that is on screen here, we're going to go through them fairly quickly, but then we're going to drill down to each and every piece as we build an actual interview plan. You wouldn't go in to sell your company's product, service, wares, whatever, without a plan of how to sell to your potential client, would you? Same thing for the interview plan. So we have to build our agenda. My agenda is not to be questioned. My agenda is, what do they need to hear to jump out of their chair, to be dazzled, to forget about the other candidates. We have to do a needs analysis. We'll talk about that. We have to select and customize our work life stories. It's not about telling every story I'd like. It's about, I have all these stories collected and ready. Which ones are right for the meeting with Jack? Which ones are the right for the meeting with Jill? And so on and so on and so forth. Not what you want to tell, but what does your audience need to hear that's also letter true. If there's no buy sign, if you get the niceties that don't move forward, we're going to have to ask them what's missing, which is scary, and we're going to have to overcome those objections. Their job is to object to you. So I hope when they object to you, you don't get freaked out. I hope that actually when they object to you, you go, fantastic. Maybe inside, don't let it show. But when they object to me, well, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have the other thing. I don't. But what I do have is this. I'm sure you'll meet a lot of those folks in the other candidates you'll see. Everybody else is always a candidate. I'm always an individual. I'm an individual that brings something different, and why I'll be most successful in this role. Give your opinion. Ooh, sounds like he has a lot of steel backbone. Another secret to remember here is they would really like you to be dangerously close to the ego and arrogance line. Don't cross it. Don't cross it. You cross that line, they will never hire you. I can't live in the same room with this person. But they'd like you dangerously close to that line because they imagine that person will deliver something special, probably something I don't even know what they'll bring, but I know it's going to be better, different than the others. We have to close them. It's a sales technique. Close them on why we're the best individual. We have to get that next piece. So let's break these down and give you a little bit more detail as I get a little coffee. So we're going to build our agenda. That means we have to think about all the people we're going to meet. Well, they sent me, I'm meeting, they sent me 2 names. I'm meeting Jack and Jill. Are those all the people you're going to meet on Tuesday? Well, no, it doesn't sound like you really know. Email them right now and figure out who else you're going to meet with. Well, I just emailed them this morning. Email them again. It's worth it. Oh, dear Jack or Jill or whoever your contact is, in addition to meeting yourself and Jill or yourself and Jack, can you let me know who else I'm likely, there's the important word, to meet with, so I can fully prepare for the meeting? They will tell you. It's not brain surgery. They will tell you. Well, I'm not sure, but probably Tim and maybe a couple of your peers. Okay, I got one more name. I got a reference to my peers. I could look up who I think my peers are on LinkedIn. Oh, there's 6 of them. I'm going to have to plan on how to build chemistry with all 6, even though I'm only going to meet with 2 of them. That's preparation. Find out who you're going to meet with so you can prepare. It's not the same presentation to every single person. What's their background? What's their background? What's their background? Special challenge if it's a group interview. How will you build chemistry with each of these people? What career stories are the right ones that each one of them need to hear? What else could you leave them thinking about you that would make them jump out of your chair or their chair? Even better. Hopefully they're not in my chair. We have to do the needs analysis. This is simply a scary sales term. It means really exactly what it says. How about before you answer questions, you really confirm what they need? You're probably taken a little off target because you read that darn job posting, which I have another phrase for. I call it the list of the irrelevance. That's a new word with a T and an S on the end, because almost everything on that list is irrelevant to the job. Oh, tangentially connected somehow. I get it. That's not a picture of the day-to-day of the job. And yet somehow that migrates down to HR as a checkbox list. Watch my LinkedIn lecture to understand how to go directly. So I have to do this needs analysis to make sure what I believe the job is the right one. Otherwise, I'm going to give them the wrong stories that don't solve the problem. Also can't let them think I didn't prepare. So I'm like, Jack might go, oh, tell me about yourself. Oh, I wanted to do the needs analysis first. Oh, I'd love to. It's an agree but disagree technique, by the way. I agree with whatever it is they're saying, then I disagree with it by what I do next. Before I do, I'd love to hear from your perspective or your opinion. Ooh, there goes those strokes of ego right there. As I step into this role, visualizing myself in their brain stepping into the role. Yes. As I step into this role, from your perspective, what do you think I need to really get control of, say, in the first 30 to 60 days? Stay away from 90 days. That triggers something different in the brain. 30 to 60 days will get them to tell you about what's not on the job posting, what has not been previously discussed, what may be on fire, what may have derailed already, what's about to derail, or give you the analysis to understand, even if they don't, what's about to derail. What would you like to see change? What would you like to solve by me stepping into this role? Not by hiring someone. Hiring someone, am I just one of someone? Having me step into this role. Why is the job open? Oh, that's an interesting one. And many times you might get, well, I don't think it's really appropriate we talk about that. Oh, totally fine, totally fine. What would you like to see change? What would you like to see solved? They're going to tell you exactly why the previous person was fired, simply by that. And yet you avoid all the tricky, touchy areas. Most important question is probably the what have they not seen, if you've got the backbone to ask it. Because if you're this direct, Jack, Jim, Jill, let me just ask you, it's a great discussion, by the way. Absolutely. Stroke the ego, give your opinion. What have you not seen? Oh, yeah. Just like you see it here, what have you not seen? Well, I haven't seen this. And they're going to tell you exactly why they've not hired. Oh my gosh, if I have this or have an example of this from my career background, you better believe I'm going to trot that out right now. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I think that's very, very important piece. Absolutely. If you haven't seen it, don't hire without that. And I have it. Connect all the dots and then tell them what you've done for your prior employer. That could be so valuable. Well, that's probably experience that would really help in this challenge. There, I just said it, didn't I? Because it's my job to be persuasive. That's the whole needs analysis. Understand what questions you should be answering, not the ones you assume you should be answering. Select and customize your work-life stories. Which stories illustrate a certain skill or certain value or a certain interest? You have to not tell every story every time, but you have to tell the right ones to the right audience. All need to be letter true, of course. No sin of omission. Leave out any part you'd like, as long as everything in is absolutely correct. Overcome the objections. You already heard my reaction. No, you object to me. You haven't worked in this industry. You haven't worked since last year. You haven't worked in commercial. You haven't worked in nonprofit. All the things they could accuse you of, which are probably true. So here again, I use an agree but disagree technique. If I've not worked in nonprofit, I've only worked in commercial, and I'm trying to get interviewed and hired in nonprofit. Well, John, you've never worked in nonprofit. I haven't. Just like it's a gift from up above. You know why? Because they have lots of people that have worked in nonprofit within the organization that probably have lived in this little bubble and don't really expand their skill set the way someone in the commercial world might. So I might simply go, I haven't. But of course, like I'm throwing it under the front tire of the bus. Of course, I'm sure you meet a lot of those people in the other candidates that you'll meet for this role. What I bring as an individual is something quite different. With all of my business acumen and my passion for your mission, I'll bring a level of ability to move the ball forward, move that needle in a way that others really just can't. So that's why I'm so excited about this role. Right back to them like a date every single time, if you can, at the end. Part of creating that interview plan. Now, if there's no buy sign, what is a buy sign? There's only two buy signs. One buy sign is, gosh, I'd love to get your references, like to move toward offer. I love that buy sign. And the other thing is, I'd like to hire you. Those are the two buy signs. Or maybe there's a third little wiggle room, and that is, gosh, I'd love to bring you back next week to meet Jack, Jim, Jill. Indication of the next interview, and they indicated that you're getting it. They didn't have to schedule it, but they indicated you're getting it. Those are all buy signs. Everything else, like, wow, John, what a great conversation. I'm so excited. Wow, you really understand who we are. All sounds great so far. And then they segue over to, but we have a few more people to see, probably a couple more weeks. We're a little bit slow on decision process. What? After meeting me, you're not ready to decide? Now, could I pull that off? Probably. Can other people? Some, not everybody. You have to stay within your skill set of soft skills. But if there's no buy sign, I'm simply going to challenge them on it right now. And I'm going to use closing questions. These are sales technique verbiage, closing questions, to help them begin to close their process, their decision process. And in my use of closing questions, what happens in the brain is they begin to visualize a two-dimensional timeline, a race more or less. In recruiting, we had a literal board on the wall that we would call the horse race board. And we literally would put little magnetic horses of our candidates up there. Terrible, but it's good sales motivation. So in this case, you're trying to help them visualize the entire process of decision and the finish line. And then they're going to imagine where you are in relation to all that. And they're going to imagine what's wrong with you. I know that's scary. That's scary. You want them to think about what's wrong with me? Yes, I do want them to think about what's wrong with you because you're here in the conversation right now and I can overcome that objection. So I might simply use these closing questions and also helps strengthen our relationship and our chemistry. This is how you begin to ask things. A couple closing questions. Jack, they wrap it up. They're like, a couple more weeks, we'll have a decision. We'll reach back out to blah, blah. Fantastic. I can't wait to hear back. Jack, before we go, let me ask you, what have you not heard? Yes, it has to be a little theatrical. Or what have you not seen? Or what have we not discussed that would help you in your decision process for this role? Little good cop, bad cop in the style there, because you never quite know how the brain is wired. And you have to hit kind of both ways there. That's why it's a little theatrical on both ends. And they're going to think about what's wrong with you. Well, I think you're probably a little weak in area A. Oh, well, let's talk about that. Actually, very interesting. I've done this and I've done that. Which would you like to talk about? I can overcome that objection right now. Now, if you've seen me before, this is a pretty good one, by the way. It's not quite enough for me. I'd like to amp it up even further. Well, Jack, before we go, let me just ask you, what have you not heard or what have we not discussed that would help you in your selection of me as the very best? We're going to change this to individual for the position, not candidate like the others. I got to change that. And then they're going to think about the same thing about what needs to be overcome. So that is part of the closing process where they can voice objections. Well, I think you're probably a little weak over here. You really haven't done this over there. And then you can persuade them that, oh, that's well within your wheelhouse of skills that you can deliver. So to recap, creating the interview plan itself, build your agenda, do the needs analysis, have your work-life stories ready and prepared. That means writing them out, setting the light, setting the stage, putting them in your shoes. Well, that's such an interesting question. That's how I might start it. When I had picked up the phone and the CEO was on the other end to offer me the job at XYZ, right in the moment, the tingle, has to be true, by the way, tingle on the back of the neck. That takes practice. That takes time. Write it out and practice it so you get the muscle memory of telling that story and the right cadence and style and everything else. Ownership of your story. No buy sign, got to ask them what's missing, got to overcome those objections, have to get them to see you as the very, very best selection. Now, I want to go through my interview checklist. This is another way to think about what we're already talking about. Do your full research on everything. That means the job, the company culture, as much as is really possible. Read every word of their website, maybe even begin to collect together some words and phrases on a sheet of paper so I can morph my style over to their conversational style. It's like, wow, he sounds like one of our employees already. It's like, do I? Very comfortable. I can slide right into this team. It'll be fantastic. Do the needs analysis. We talked about that. Find out what the need is before you answer the question. Don't just assume it. Watch your body language. Your body language is speaking volumes about your confidence. The one tricky part of body language, if we control everything else, well, two tricky parts. The first part is when they walk out to the reception area to meet with you and they shake your hand. Oh my gosh, do you know how many times I've gone out to interview someone, I shake their hand and I turn around to walk them back to wherever we're going. And in my brain, I'm going, ew, how wet is that hand? Now, you can't do this kind of stuff. It doesn't work very well. It's like, I really don't want to shake your hand now. But you could, if you're stress sweating, you could just on your legs, just lightly have your hand there. That will help it. But don't be clenched, don't be closed, everything else, let the air out and be as cool when you shake their hand as possible. The other thing that goes wrong in body language is I'm so desperate for this job. I got to have this job that I become one of those statues that, no matter where we move in the room, the eyes follow. It's like creepy security. So even though you may not need it, you have to understand style of where I can hear what you're doing. I can start to say what I'm going to say, and then I can look away for a little bit of thought as I'm speaking and come right back to you. I didn't really need to look away. Excuse my use of a tissue. I didn't really need to look away, but I have to give them a little bit of breathing room so they realize I'm not going to be in every meeting like staring them down, which nobody really likes. Watch the body language. It's very, very important. Dress like you are a success. Now, earlier today, I was out doing some cardio. I was in, waterproof shoes today because it's raining here today, but normally I'm in 5 fingers. I'm out there in running tights and a top. And you know what? If I showed up here like that, I don't think you'd be listening to me. You have to look the part. I don't care what it is you may wear in your day-to-day work. You have to look like $1 million walking in the door. This is your only chance to beat your competitor. You walk in looking less sharp than the competitor is ahead of you. Also allows them to think about that one time when the board is visiting or important customers visiting and how all of this is going to work. As I have to get one more tissue. Sorry about that. I guess I should get a little more tissue in the first place. Are you listening? Giving you so much to think about, you're going to forget to active listen. So first off, you can't interrupt them because they may have something to say and they may take 5 minutes to say it. Also don't want to forget when I hear something magical like, oh, I need to comment in on that. So yes, can you take notes in an interview? It's a business meeting. Can you take notes in a business meeting? Yes, and you don't have to ask permission for it. Does that mean we can be OCD with our notebook? That's not going to work very well for you either. And by the way, I'm a little OCD. It's all about how you channel it and control it. So if they say something really interesting that, I can capitalize on that with my story over here, I can just have the notebook on my knee with my pen. I can glance down momentarily to make sure the pen's in the right spot. I can write the keyword to remind me, circle it, keeping the attention on them. And when they wrap up and there's a chance for me to speak, I can glance down and see if it's still appropriate that I go back and tell that piece as I get a little liquid. Are you listening? Very, very important. Ask not, but do sell yourself. You're there to sell yourself. You're not there to be tentative. I know you're there to evaluate whether this is the right spot for you, right team, everything else. Yes, do that. Never let them see it. This is a date. If you walked across the room to introduce yourself to someone, I just had to walk over here and introduce myself to you. And then you spent the whole time going, now what is it that you do? And what's your exercise activity like? And, what do you do on the weekends? And who are your friends? And get this guy out of here. Can someone help get this guy away from me? You're there to sell yourself all in while you're still critically evaluating behind the scenes. Would you like more money? Guess what? Everyone would like more money. I'd like more money. How do you get more money? Let me just give you the answer. Oh, it's not even here. Oh, it is here. Don't talk about money. It's been a while since I've given the lecture. Yes, don't talk about money. Now, my clients, they'll be prepping for an interview and they go, but when do I? Don't talk about money. But when? This is something we want to know. I understand that. It's something we never talk about. The longer you can prevent them from somehow associating a number with you, much easier it is in the end to get them to the right number. Gives lots and lots of time before they think of that number with you to begin to fall in love with your skill set, begin to fall in love with you for this team, all the value you can bring. And then when they think of a number for you, it's a very different number and a very different starting place. That's how we get the very best offer. Whole separate lecture on negotiating. A lot more that you can do in that moment. And we're not going to cover it all today here. Time to get it right. 2 different timing issues. First off, if you're late for the interview, I'm sorry, I'm never going to hire you. It's never going to happen. I don't care who you are. It's never going to happen. If this is not the most important thing today for you, I'm never going to hire you because you're already demonstrating what you're going to do to me when you work for me. You're going to disregard meetings and not show up and come in late and everything else. So first off, get into the area of the interview, but 30 minutes in advance, not their lobby, not their reception area. Get in the area 30 minutes in advance so you're not discombobulated. Hate to do all this preparation and then you got to rush at the last moment. I'm all sweaty and discombobulated. My thoughts are all over the place and I've ruined all my preparation. Get to the coffee shop, get to the park bench, whatever it might be. Make sure you're properly caffeinated and right calories and everything else you need so your energy levels are up. Go over your notes, think of everything, close that notebook 10, 15 minutes beforehand so you can focus. Trust that all the work that you've done will be available to you, and just center yourself. Then give yourself enough time to get through the lobby security, get through the floor security, so you can arrive in their reception area 5 to 15 minutes before the interview, not 1 moment earlier. You have an 11 o'clock interview and you show up at 10:35. Hey, John, your 11 o'clock is here. Oh, gosh, my day is already out of control. I can't leave you out there 25 minutes. Now I have to put on a happy face. And I have to come out there and go, oh, hi, great. I'll be out as soon as I can, probably right close to 11 or maybe actually just after. I'm running a little late today, but I can't wait for our discussion. Oh, you're messing up my schedule already. Prove to them that you understand timing. Other thing on timing is offer stage. If you have no intention to negotiate this offer, if you're going to accept this offer, you need to accept this offer on the spot now. It's like the orchestra building up the crescendo, or the two people getting up to the altar and one of them says, I do. And the other one says, can I think about that over the weekend or overnight? I'm not even sure how to answer that for you. So by the way, if you are going to negotiate it, absolutely, those are things, but we never use that technique. We give them the win and keep the momentum going, keep the win in our column essentially, and in their column, by accepting the offer if we're not going to negotiate. If you are going to negotiate, whole separate discussion, a lot of it in my book, and I have another video up on my live tab of my YouTube channel where you can find it. Next step, opportunity. The whole thing is all about this opportunity, how exciting it is to you because it's a date. And don't forget at the end to ask for the job. Not as simple as I want this job. Maybe, but not very likely. The magic really comes from, gosh, Jack, Jim, Jill, I've loved our discussion. What's our next step? Well, John, the next step is to walk you down the hall to meet Sally. I think they sent you the schedule. Yeah, I get that part. They all need to hear it. Ooh, what's the next step? When they have that round table discussion after they've met all the candidates and they throw those resumes across the table, they have to know that, who's excited about the job? All within your skill set of soft abilities, intelligence quotient, emotional intelligence quotient. So preparing your real homework is to prepare all those answers to the questions you might be asked. You already know all the questions you could be asked. Write a list. If you're the manager, write a list out. What if I'm looking for the right me, what questions would I ask? Write all of those questions, including the really tough ones, and then spend some time crafting a great answer that sets the stage, sets the lighting, puts the right mood there, puts them in your shoes, hopefully looking out of your eyes. So make that list of questions. That's your specialty, but add 3, as I dry out here, add 3 self-recruiter questions. First one is, tell me why I should hire you over all others that I see. Kind of like throwing down the gauntlet type question. No, in reality, I don't think you're really going to get this question directly, but oh my gosh, elements of this answer must be mixed in. That's part of the magic. My answers must include this part and they must imagine it. Next one is, tell me why my work life will get easier or better by hiring you. Again, not very likely to ask you it this way, but again, that's another piece of magic. Elements of this answer have to be mixed into everything that I do. That's part of why this is really going to work. And of course, the last one is pure magic, and that is something that conveys to them why it'll be the best business decision they make today if they choose to hire you or work with you on this project or whatever that relationship might be. Now, practice makes perfect. You cannot be great off the cuff. I can be great doing this off the cuff. I've given my lectures for quite a number of years, worked with so many clients, been a recruiter for many years. There's so much background, which you can hear in my resume lecture and my LinkedIn lecture, so I won't repeat it here today as we're watching the clock here. A few more pieces of advice to give you. Get with a coach, get with a friend, role play this thing. The key to role playing is, I'm sorry, you don't get to start and stop. Oh, no, let me start over. Really? Is that what you're going to say in the interview? Not going to go well for you. You are all in when you do a role play and a rehearsal and a practice. And that means even if it goes off the rails, let's see how you would get it back on the rails if you did this in front of the decision maker. Of course, follow-up is critically important. Would you like to be seen as someone special? Well, first off, I hope you sent a cover letter, whether they asked for it or not, or I would never hire you. You're just looking for a job, not this job. But the follow-up, the thank you notes. You want to be a standout? Send a thank you note. Now, when I give these lectures in person to audiences, oh my gosh, I may have 60, 70 people in the audience, and I'm like, who sends a thank you note? And oh my gosh, it seems like half the audience or more puts up their hand. And it's liar, liar, pants on fire, because I've been on the other end of that, and almost nobody sends a thank you note. Yes, a few of them, but almost nobody, statistically. You want to stand out? Send them a thank you note. Plus, thank you note is a great way to overcome something that happened. Key to this piece and how to use this as a tool is don't go home after the interview. Hit the park bench or coffee shop, whatever it is nearby. Dump all the information onto a sheet of paper or your tablet, whatever it is you're using. Everything that happened, no matter how tangential, there's a reason you're having that tangential thought. All that stuff right onto the paper before I lose it. It gets lost into the ether. And this is part of a self-diagnosis. This is a debrief after the interview. This is where it should feel like an interrogation, a grilling, a cross-examination, but you're doing it for yourself, trying to figure out, what did I miss? What could I have done better? So it's the good, the bad, the ugly. Yes, the good because I got to pat myself on the back and I have to repeat it next time. The bad because I have to have a different strategy. And the ugly because I just missed poor signs or stuck my foot in my mouth. So don't shy away from this. What went well? What didn't go well? What was poorly? What did I avoid? Most important question I'll ask last because it's a little demoralizing. If they don't move forward with you or don't move you toward an offer, what's the reason? No thought here. No thought here. It's like hitting the funny bone and you have a reaction type thing. Your gut reaction. Probably because I'm weak in area A. Really? Area A important? So to further this, give them the nice thank you. By the way, please don't ever thank someone again for their time. You have to be absolutely equal to everybody you speak with. You cannot be equal to them if you thank them for their time. Your time is valuable as well. So thank them for the great discussion, the insights, something else they shared. That's great. Thank you. And then segue to a new paragraph so it doesn't get missed. We didn't have a lot of opportunity to talk about Area A where I've worked on projects such as this and that. By the way, those are the only 2 area projects I've ever worked on. But the implication is here that they'll probably think that those are representative. I never said they were. Those are the only 2. If you'd like to discuss these areas, reach out to me anytime. Click send. Now, this helped save one of my promotions years and years ago before I was ever a recruiter. I was running a pre-press service bureau in an organization that had 121 locations. My department was the #1 department, according to its P&L, #1 department in the entire country. I'm inside of the #4 store in the country, big monster-sized store. Our general manager goes up to be country manager of Canada, and John goes, I should just rise to the throne and become general manager. I'm already got the best P&L in the country for my department. And went in, had a great discussion. Conversational ability, nuance was really unmatched. Trap for me was I could literally see my competitors at the smaller stores that all wanted this big monster store for a bigger payday. And I brought a lot to the table much before I was that. I had many other roles in my life. Look at the career reinvention lecture to hear all about that. And I looked at those folks and I went, ego and arrogance came right in. Who, those folks? I'm the one. And boy, that's a real missed opportunity. And so one of the regional managers really loved me, my current one that loved that P&L. The other one didn't quite get me, a little oil and water type thing. I don't know about John. And so afterward, I thought I did pretty well, called my spy in HQ. Got back to my store. I'm like, I think it went pretty well. No, I don't think so. They're in there arguing about you right now. Something about your vision for the store. I'm like, I had the whole interview and I forgot to communicate my vision for the store because I was so confident looking at my competitors going, please, how could you pick these folks compared to what I brought to the table? I know it sounds terrible, but I forgot that piece and this saved my bacon. I thanked them for the great discussion, the insights they were sharing. I said, by the way, we didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about my vision for the store. If you'd like to talk about that, reach out on my cell phone anytime. Click send. And oh my gosh, I'm bullet pointing out right now. They're going to call me any second. I've got to have the vision for the store. Never called me. Got the job. Here's a vision. Here's a vision. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can't do anything anyway. Here's a vision. Save your bacon if you use it properly. Think about the thank you note process. Close it properly. I'm very excited about everything we've discussed. What's the next step? Excited how I contribute, all those things. All things being equal, you get hired by chemistry. So don't forget about the engagement and building chemistry. That piece is critical. You've got to find out how to make it all about them, even though it's really about you. You've got to show real and genuine interest. Let's get over to the secrets of video conferencing and video interviewing, because we have to do that today. So whether it's Zoom or Meet or whatever other thing that you might be using, think about how your interview takes place and how all of that changes, whether you're over the phone or video or in person. Your job is to get it across the finish line, and most likely it's going to be a video conference these days. COVID, all that kind of stuff we have to think about. We've become very used to doing video conferencing to such a way that it's to our detriment because we don't think about the important things. Now, here's a bunch of Zoom screens I just pulled off of the internet. And I want to remind you, interviewing is about chemistry and confidence. So do we see it here? Do we see chemistry and confidence? I don't see it. I don't see it. This person's not really interviewing to work at a sports team. I don't know if they really understand it's a job interview. So this doesn't work. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it? I'm really not sure I see much of anything. You're upstaged by this really bright window in the background. Plus you're down like this, like a little small animal. I don't get the confidence piece there. We need to see you, not whatever distractions behind you. Chemistry and confidence. Do we see it here? Do we see it? Oh, I'm sure they feel confident, if not building any chemistry. But I don't really need to look at the ceiling, and I really don't need to look up your nose constantly while you're looking down on me. So let's watch all of that thing. Chemistry and confidence. Do we see it? Do we see it? I'm going to give them the confidence piece. I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to give it to them right before I take it away, because I don't really think they have confidence. I suspect they don't have confidence because they have this giant boom mic. It's so much more comfortable to do my conferences like that. I don't care what's comfortable. This is your chance to win and dazzle. Are you taking your chance? Also, I don't think picking a photo like this that upstages you, because I keep looking at that great scene behind you, past you. So get rid of the boom mic, get rid of that stuff. Be your genuine self. Chemistry and confidence wins the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'm going to give it both thumbs up on this one. Framing is actually quite good with the square and square. Problem is this square picture, this square painting or whatever it might be behind them. As they begin to move around like this, I'm constantly going to be going, what is that thing? And you're being upstaged. Another version, chemistry and confidence wins the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll actually give it to them. I like this kind of framing everything else. But again, attention to detail. They allowed themselves to be upstaged by this circular wall that caused weird reflection. And plus, really, then I begin to all go, what are those pictures on your wall? And that doesn't really help us. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give it to them. I'll give it to them on both of them. It feels good. Feels nicely balanced with the little plain background, the little light over here, the little flowers over here. But I don't think the Princess Leia earmuffs, headphones are really great for you, no matter how much you may like listening that way. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it? I'll give this person both of them as well. But again, we got to get rid of these headphones. That doesn't work. I don't care how small they get. The headphones themselves like that have to disappear. And I just want to comment in on this image. Yes, it's a stock image, but it's the right stock image. It creates depth. It's not a distraction. It puts you as the center stage. All things that you really have to think about. Don't wear the medium headphones either. Let's just get rid of those things. And I believe this is the last one. Chemistry and confidence win the day. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? They win it on both. A few problems. I wish it wasn't on the angle it is, but the framing left and right is nice. Even the picture is fine. It's just enough where it won't be constantly distracting, but it's interesting. I wish their lighting was a little better on the one side, obviously. But this is the winner if all things were equal, and they never are all equal. Some other video secrets in our last few minutes, no matter which way you are doing your video conference. We have to do some things we don't like. Now, during the pandemic, this was my other half's actual desk, butted up right against the front window, which is literally just across the room over there. Took fold-out table right up against the window. Now, I have hazel eyes. I really can't stare into the bright sunlight the whole time because it's irritating. So this would not really work for me, but they seem to have no issues with it, and it worked well. So you have to have good light to look great. You can't be in some dimly lit whatever. That means also sometimes you may need a light ring. You may need to even elevate your computer to get that camera up to the right level. Camera itself should be at eye level. You need to teach yourself not to have to look at the screen. Hopefully today you've seen me looking mostly at you because you have to fall in love with the camera lens. The camera lens is everything. By the way, those light rings really have a color adjustment if you need to adjust some things around that will help things look better. If you'd like to sound great, you need to have a great microphone. By the way, this is the microphone I'm speaking on right now, a condenser mic. Yes, I know the laptops today produce pretty great sound, but isn't it worth just a few bucks more for a proper condenser mic, which will make you sound great? You see the other advice here. It has to be done standing up. Never, ever do it sitting down, in my view. If you stand up, you free up the diaphragm muscle that runs across the middle of your body, and that changes everything with presence. You can lower your vocal register just a little bit. You can open your throat and relax, and also gives you freedom of movement. You're going to see the situation I'm standing in right now, and literally I stand in about a 1 square foot area this entire lecture. And my feet really rarely move other than if I need to shift them a little bit, but my body moves. And in moving that way, I stay completely within the frame at all times. And I have a different level energy than some dud sitting on a stool. So think about all of those things and think about doing it standing up. Now, this was my initial setup. This was over in the master bedroom area. Now I'm in the front nook of the apartment where I've painted everything as a giant green enclosure. But over there, I would take the ironing board, which I'm in front of right now. And I have these same exact boxes. I've kept the boxes because they work very, very well. And the job is to get that camera up, up, up. I also have a camera on top of my laptop. I'm using a better camera than the camera on the laptop. You'll notice also I have light boxes, 3 giant light boxes. And hazel eyes don't really like that. But somehow when the camera comes on, it's okay for a little while, just like it's okay when I step on stage and I see so many other speakers like, oh, it's so bright up here. It's like, learn to love that light and step into it. Now, if we flipped it around so you could see what it looks like, in the other room, I had a green screen background and simply did it that way. Here, I've painted the entire nook lime green, floor to ceiling. So no matter where it is, I can swap it out. Actually, there's the wall right there. Literally, that's my back against the wall. Camera's right here. I have 1 square foot and nice studio to stand in. So think about light on both sides of you. If you don't have light on both sides of you, the software can't cut you out properly. It looks less than it could be. Good light in front of you. Doesn't matter whether it's irritating to you. Fall in love with that camera lens. If you need some notes, I could put them somewhere around the camera lens or even on the face of my computer. Have to have a stool. Where do you think this coffee is going? Where do you think this little clicker remote is going each time? Because I can't hold everything. So have to have a stool handy. Have to have, as you saw several times, I got to have tissues handy. In case I ended up not being able to see, I got to have a lens wipe handy. All that, you can be a human being. All that has to be accessible. Anything that you might need, and if there were notes or anything else, all of it, or maybe I need a little magic controller, which is also just right here, just out of view. All those things, obviously you don't need a magic controller, but all those things will really help you. Don't forget, the biggest thing is to look at that camera. Free yourself from having to look at the person on the screen. I don't need to look at that person. Oh, there, now I can look at the person. That is how you do a great job video interviewing. A lot of secrets packed into today's session. I hope that you found it very, very valuable. Please do like, comment, share, message, share with your friends, post it across every place known to man. Please do. If you need help elevating your career brand or preparing for the right interview, all my services are over on the Self Recruiter website, just under the services tab. And if you need to chat before you know which package is right for you, reach out and we'll set up a time to talk. Thank you guys for tuning in, and understand that whether it's today's lecture on interview or Tuesday's lecture on raising your career brand with your LinkedIn profile or resume renovation to make that resume really sing your praises, it's about taking that first step and learning how to repeat, 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 repeat. Again, all the lectures from this week. Thank you guys for joining in, and we will talk to you very, very soon.